Hey folks, welcome to the second lab on epithelial tissues. Last time we met, we looked at simple and pseudostratified epithelia. Today, we're looking at stratified epithelia and a couple of things associated with them. Just a quick recap. Remember from last time, if an epithelium has more than one layer of cells, it's stratified. If it has not fewer than one, if it has just one, there we go, it is simple. Now, what I'm showing you here, this whole picture here is thick skin. You have thick skin. We have thick skin in our palmar and our plantar surfaces. So let me draw a little quick self-portrait. This is me. Give myself some legs and some feet, some arms. I have very nice hands. There I am. Oh, that hand is beautiful. That's me right there. Give me some eyes, a little nose, a little mouth. Yeah, make myself a little happier. There we go. That's me right there. All right. And my palmar and plantar surfaces, there's my palmar surface right there. There's my plantar surface right there. This is where we have thick skin. Everywhere else in our body, we have what's called thin skin. Now, obviously, you can guess this immediately. Thick skin is thicker than thin skin. And so we have it on our palmar and plantar surfaces in order to give us more protection. Protection from abrasion, from physical injury, for whatever. Okay? So this picture here is of thick skin. Now, thick skin has two parts to it, okay? There's an outer part, this black bracket part, and that outer part is called the epidermis. There's also a deeper part down here where my red line is called the dermis. Now, the epidermis, this layer right here, this is made out of stratified squamous epithelium. Look how many layers of cells, or look how many layers of nuclei we have here. Lots of layers of nuclei. And actually, these are all cells up top here. They're just dead cells, so you don't see the nucleus anymore. But this is multiple layers of cells. That is what makes this a stratified epithelium. Now, these dead cells on the top, it's hard to even make out their shape because they are extremely flat. And their flatness is what makes them squamous. So this is stratified squamous epithelium. It is thick, it is multi-layered, that is really good for protection. Now, deep to the epidermis, down here we have the dermis. The dermis is mostly connective tissue. Look how there's a lot fewer nuclei down here in the dermis. I also want you to notice how there is this waviness at the interface between the dermis and the epidermis. This waviness enhances the connection between the two. Think about like interlocking your fingers, right? And with a stronger connection, it's less likely that the epidermis is going to be sheared away. By the way, the word dermis literally means skin, epidermis on top of the skin, the top of the skin. Okay, good stuff. Let's look a little bit more at the skin. There's a few more things we got to realize and name about it, okay? Now, the cells here, the vast majority of them are these cells known as keratinocytes. They're cells known as keratinocytes. They're called keratinocytes because they make this tough, fibrous, waterproof protein called keratin. So the vast majority of these cells are keratinocytes. I don't necessarily see any other cells here, but there are other types of skin cells. One prominent one that you've probably heard of are the melanocytes. They make the pigment melanin, which is going to protect our skin from UV radiation. All right, I want to point out some of the different layers to this thick skin. Right superficial to the dermis, there is a single cell layer that we call the stratum basale. The word stratum means layer, basale at the base. Check out the weird pronunciation, basale, okay? Then we have a slightly fainter set of cells that collectively is called the stratum spinosum. Someone thought these cells look spiny because you could, if you look really close and zoom in, you can see the desmosomes that are anchoring these cells together. Remember that word desmosomes? We meant that in the last lab. Desmosomes are strong anchors between epithelial tissues. Between epithelial cells, rather. Then our cells, our keratinocytes, get a little more purple-ish. And you can see little dots in them if you look really close. Just like right there. And now this layer, where it looks like the cells have little grains, is called the stratum granulosum. Then we get a layer, a very skinny layer, where the cells are kind of clearish, but they're not yet dead. And that very skinny layer is called the stratum lucidum. Now, this layer, stratum lucidum, is only present in thick skin. So it's only on your palmar and your plantar surfaces. Now, the final layer is the stratum corneum. That's your top layer where you just have dead cells that are basically bags of keratin. Corneum means horn because the same protein, keratin, is going to make up horns like in a rhinoceros or something. All right, so we should be able to recognize this as epidermis. We should be able to recognize each of these sublayers in it. We should note these cells are keratinocytes. We're not going to see it, but we should know that there are going to be melanocytes in here and they make melanin. We should, of course, know that the epidermis is a stratified squamous epithelium, which is thick for protection. And by the way, you can see this faintish pink line right here. That's the basement membrane. Remember, underneath every epithelium is a basement membrane. Okay, sweet. Let's keep on going. We've switched gears here, haven't we? This is a skin model. Now, this is not the microscopic view. It's different. I think it's a little easier. We're going to have thick and thin skin in the skin model. We're also going to have a lot of other stuff. And just to point out one thing really quickly, this brown thing right here, this brown guy right here, this brown guy right here, that's hair. Okay? Wherever we have hair, we're going to be in thin skin. So there's no hair on your palmar or plantar surfaces. Double check that if you need to. There's no hair there. So if I see hair, I know I have thin skin. Like its name suggests, thin skin is going to be thinner. Okay? Especially the corneum. The stratum corneum is like way skinnier. And also there is no stratum lucidum, so there are only 4 sublayers as opposed to 5. So this is my epidermis of my thin skin. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. And that corneum up top is super duper thin. And there is no lucidum. Okay, let's look at the layers of skin in the skin model and then some other associated structures too. So, here I got thick skin. Switched it around on you. This is thick skin. There are no hairs in this part right here. No hairs whatsoever. This is thick skin. Now I'm at the very bottom here. I can see this single layer of cells right here is the stratum basale. So the pointer is on the stratum basale. If we jump the point a little higher, right in here, this is the stratum spinosum. Jump it a tiny bit higher, this area where it looks a little darker, and they made it darker to reflect the grains, this is the stratum granulosum. Now, right above it, this layer that's been colored white in the model is the stratum lucidum. And above that, we got the stratum corneum, which is really rather thick. So we can see all 5 layers here. Now, do you remember what kind of cells they're made out of? They are made out of, just giving you a pause there so you can shout it out. They are made out of keratinocytes. Why are they called keratinocytes? What do keratinocytes make? Keratinocytes make keratin. Awesome. Okay. Is this still thick skin, or did I switch it back to thin skin? Definitely thin skin. How do we know? We can see this hair right here. We can also see that it is just a thinner epidermis, especially that stratum corneum. Now, right now, my pointer is in the dermis. Remember that deeper layer of the skin? In fact, this whole stretch, like all the way down to where I have the yellowish stuff. So, let me draw a line. Let's draw a line. Lines are good. Lines are helpful. Boom, boom, boom. So, all that above my blue line there is my dermis. Let me make another blue line right here. So between the blue lines, any hockey fans out there? Right here we got the dermis, okay? Now, where the pointer is, this upper layer of the dermis, it's about the upper fifth or so. So do some quick math. Upper fifth, about 20% of your dermis is called the papillary layer of the dermis. The word papillary, it means bumpy. Papillary means bumpy. And do you remember how we talked about how there was waviness? Like right here, you can see the waviness really nicely. That waviness helps anchor the epidermis to the dermis. That is what the bumpiness is referring to. And that's why we call it the papillary layer of the dermis. It is made out of this connective tissue type called areolar. We will meet areolar connective tissue in lab number 4. It is quite lovely. Now, the bumps, so like this bump right here, that bump of dermis, we don't actually call it a bump. We call one of those a papilla. Now, in fact, in your body, there's lots of different papillae. So we call it a dermal papilla. One is a papilla, many are papillae. So the bumps here are called dermal papillae. They are part of the papillary layer of the dermis, which is a superficial 1/5 or 20%, and it helps lock tight to the epidermis. All right. Let's keep on going. Oh, awesome. I love this part of the model here. What they've done here is they've ripped off the epidermis to show you the bumps or the papillae of the dermis. So each of these guys, each of these bumpy things here, is a dermal papilla. Many of them are dermal papillae. And they're going to help interlock with the overlying epidermis, giving a stronger connection between the two. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the bumps are much bigger and more prominent here in thick skin. Like if I backtrack, if I got to get out of this first. If I backtrack, I should backtrack. There we go. The bumps in thin skin are going to be a lot smaller, wider. Because in thick skin, you need a stronger attachment. Because thick skin is where where abrasive forces are more likely to be encountered. All right, good stuff. Now we've gone down deeper into the bottom 80% or so of the dermis, and the lower 4/5 of the dermis is known as the reticular layer. The word reticular means like a net, and there's actually these strong protein fibers in this layer made out of collagen, and the collagen fibers kind of go in all sorts of directions. And so someone said, hey, that looks like a net. And this multi-directionality of the collagen in this deep sublayer of your skin makes it really strong. And by the way, the tissue here is called dense irregular connective tissue. And we'll actually meet that in lab 4 as well, okay? So don't worry, we'll talk about it. I know you're intrigued. Okay, good stuff. Let's find some more things on this skin model here. Deep to the skin, so it's actually not part of the skin, but it's deep to the skin, is this region called the hypodermis, hypo, beneath. So beneath the dermis. It is made out of adipose tissue. You might think of adipose tissue as, you might know it as fat tissue. We'll meet adipose tissue under the microscope in the next lab as well. All of these yellow guys here are fat cells. The better word for fat cells are adipocytes. You always have adipocytes under your dermis. And this fat is good for shock absorption. It's good for thermal insulation as well, preventing heat loss. All right. Excellent. Let's do some more skin stuff. This right here is a sweat gland. This white ball-like thing with a duct extending to a pore opening on the surface is a sweat gland. And there's actually two types of sweat glands we're going to meet. This variety of sweat gland is called a merocrine sweat gland. You have millions of these over your body. They make sweat, obviously. Duh, they make sweat. They're sweat glands, right? They're actually always making sweat. You're always making some sweat. Normally, that sweat just evaporates. It's when you're getting really hot that you actually become aware of that perspiration. So the sweat made by these sweat glands, it is a watery sweat. It is going to evaporate. Now, in order for water to go from a liquid phase to a gas phase to evaporate, what does that require? That requires heat. And that heat comes from your body. So the heat for the evaporation of sweat comes from your body. And so when heat is leaving your body, as the water vapor disperses away, that is going to reduce your body temp. That's why on a humid day, it's been pretty humid lately in my neck of the woods, and on a humid day, there's already so much water in the air that your sweat has a hard time evaporating, and when the sweat doesn't evaporate, you don't get that cooling if you've ever been to Phoenix and they're like, oh, it's a dry heat. When the air is dry, you evaporate your sweat really well and you cool off better. Anyhow, let's keep going. See if we can get this lab done in less than 2 hours. I'm joking. I'm at less than half an hour. Let's see. All right, I mentioned a moment ago there are two types of sweat glands. A moment ago we were looking at merocrine sweat glands. This big yellow ball with the yellow duct leading to a pore is called an apocrine sweat gland. Now, while merocrines are found all over your body, apocrines are not. They're found in the armpits, so better known as the axillary regions. They're found around the anus, so anal region, and also in the pubic areas. These guys are going to secrete a thicker sweat that is richer in nutrients. And those nutrients are a smorgasbord, a buffet for bacteria. Bacteria metabolize those nutrients and produce waste products, and those waste products can carry odors. Now, human beings like me and you, there really is no function for these glands. And we are not, using our sweat glands to mark our territory. We're not rubbing our sweat all around our front yard to let people know, hey, this is my zone. Okay? Other animals do that. We're not using these sweat glands to advertise to the opposite sex that it is time to mate. Other animals do that. So when we have these types of structures where we still have them, but we don't really need them, their purpose for us is basically nil. These types of things are known as vestigial. There's actually a lot of vestigial structures that we have in our body, and we'll meet some of them as we go along. All right. Excellent. Let's look at a few more things in the skin model. Now, what I've got here is a hair. My cursor's on a hair right here. And surrounding every hair follicle is this another type of gland, this bumpy blue guy here. This bumpy blue guy is called a sebaceous gland. They're only found in thin skin because obviously you don't have hair in thick skin. And these glands are always associated with a hair follicle. They are going to make this oily secretion called sebum, which is going to have a moisturizing effect on your skin. All right. Cool. Let's keep going. If I were faster at my transitions, we could get these labs done quicker. Okay. Remember my hair follicles here? Got my hair follicle right here. Got my sebaceous gland right here. This is actually my hair shaft. Sorry, my hair follicle is down here. Don't want to mess up my terminology. Attached to the hair follicle is this muscle right here. This muscle, it's a band of smooth muscle, which is involuntary muscle you don't control. This muscle here is called an arrector pili. Arrector means straightener. Pili means of hair. So it's a straightener of the hair. So this smooth muscle tissue, and there's one on every hair follicle, is going to contract when you get scared or when the temperature is cold. Now, this is another one of those vestigial structures where it doesn't do anything for us, but in other animals, other mammals, it serves a crucial function. When it's cold out and these muscles contract, they make the hair stand up, which has the effect to trap more warm air near the body and help insulate it. Now that occurs in furry mammals, not in us, because we don't have enough hair for it to have any effect. In other animals, the hair standing up can also make them appear larger, more ferocious, as either predator or prey, what have you. Again, we don't look scary when this happens in us. We just get goosebumps. So this is another vestigial structure. All right. I think we are done with the skin model. Yes, we are. Amazing. And so now we're back to some microscopy. We are no longer looking at the skin. Instead, I have a pair of microscopic slides. The red bracket in each case is showing me epithelium. These are both from the urinary bladder. So the lumen of the urinary bladder, let's make that a different color so I can see it better. The lumen of the urinary bladder is right here. And the bracket is on my epithelium. There's connective tissue down here. This epithelium is a stratified epithelium. Nucleus. So multiple layers of nuclei. It is definitely stratified. It is known as transitional epithelium. That is because it changes shape depending on the degree of stretch it experiences. As the bladder fills out, so this is a bladder that's being stretched, the cells flatten out and the whole layer thins out. When the bladder is relaxed and kind of empty, the cells at the lumen, so the apical cells, have this dome-shaped appearance. These guys are actually called umbrella cells because someone said they look like an umbrella. Maybe you can see that. You like put a little thing right there, have a person holding the umbrella, happy in the rain. Anyway, this transitional epithelium is also known as urothelium because it's in other urinary structures too. It's not just in the urinary bladder. So transitional because it transitions from one shape to another. Urothelium because it is in the urinary system. In fact, you don't find transitional epithelium anywhere. People always say, like, what about the stomach? That would make sense. And it would make sense, but it's just not the case. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Almost done, guys. Last slide, right here. This is a transverse section of a sweat gland duct. Ooh, let me go back real quick. Bear with me. Remember this guy right here? This merocrine sweat gland? Let's say we just sliced him like right here. Okay? Sliced him right there. Spun it and looked at it. What would we see? We would see something like this. So here is the lumen of the duct of the sweat gland. And here are the yellow arrows on the epithelium lining that duct. And check it out. We definitely have multiple layers here. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3, occasionally even 4, I believe. So this is a stratified epithelium. The cells are mostly circular-ish. So it is a stratified cuboidal epithelium. Magnificent. We are done with the lab number 4 video. We are done in under 28 minutes. Outstanding. So, hey guys, epithelial tissue is done. I'm happy and excited about that. We got 2 connective tissue labs, and it is time for our first lab exam. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.